Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and give this just a moment before we get started. So bear with us. We're going to be on mute, and then our team will kick us off. Okay, go ahead, Philip and Will.
You got it. Welcome and thanks for joining our TLS Unlocking New Opportunities webinar today. I'm Philip Schultz and thrilled to be with you all today. We're going to spend the next hour doing a deep dive into our latest new program, Simply Solar. You'll come away with a better understanding of the program and have all the marketing and resources and hopefully all of your questions answered to take full advantage of the program. But before we get started, I'd like to pass over to Will Pendleton to kick us off. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Philip. This is really exciting. Thank you guys for taking the time to join us. It's going to be a great use of your time. I'm super excited because it's rare for us that we have an opportunity to step into the role of innovation, right? And this is truly an innovative product, right? You're going to be exposed to something that is going to help to differentiate you and to provide a tremendous amount of value to home buyers. Specifically with the design of this program, hopefully welcome some new people into home ownership and guide them in the right direction. So really, really, really love our Simply Solar program. And we're very happy with the partnerships as far as, the strategic partners that we're going to bring to bear to help support you in the effort of originating these loans and helping get people a good position to be successful long-term homeowners and also to have a good experience with the solar installation. So highlights of the program, I'll hit it. Points of value are pretty extreme, and Brian and others are going to go more into detail, but you're going to deliver $13K to your home buyer up front. We're going to talk more about how that works. Allow them to roll solar into their first mortgage. Allow them to defer or eliminate their power bill, right, by installing solar. And then obviously the federal tax deduction comes into play. So significant layers of value. We're really excited to be one of the only lenders that has this program. We've got a lot of expertise on our team. We've got a lot of training and like I said, best partners in the business to help us make sure this is a good experience for you, helps you grow your network, your referral network, and most importantly, take care of your consumers and your referral relationships. So super excited about it. Just wanted to kind of kick that off and let everybody know. And then I'm going to pass it to Brian Decker.
What's up, guys? Well, thanks so much for kind of joining us. And so I'm going to go ahead and kind of get started. And I know if you guys have questions as we're going through it, we'll definitely take a lot of time at the end to make sure that we're answering any of those questions, for you guys. You guys can also drop them into the chat. But really what I wanted to do is, as many of you guys who do know me, I, spent 20 years on the origination side. And really what's so cool about this program is I want you to frame it in the right mindset. So what we know really has been a big barrier to home ownership has really been mainly the ability to go ahead and have enough funds towards that down payment. And the way that down payment assistance program works, which this is not a down payment assistance program, is our buyers are basically in the position where in order to get monies to help them get into that home, they're having to make a big sacrifice either by taking a substantially higher rate where they're just end up paying that assistance back through a higher interest rate, or it's a shared equity program, or, as many of us kind of know, you got to be left-handed and live in certain areas and you can't buy a house over this, or you can't make over 90 grand a year, but that's not possible with debt to income ratio requirements. And so really how this was really born was really through a program that actually, believe it or not, FHA had rolled out many, many years ago. And it just kind of sat there not being used. And what that program is called the FHA Solar and Wind Technology Loan. And what it did was it gave a home buyer the ability to go ahead and actually roll in the cost of solar into their purchase loan. without needing to have the appraised value come in to add in that loan amount. So easily kind of put, somebody buys a $500,000 house and they want to go ahead and roll in solar to substantially reduce or eliminate that, energy bill as low as possible. And let's say that was $30,000 to do so. Well, the problem for most people is there's no way you're getting an appraisal to come in at 530. And so many people just within the green loans that exist in the conventional world, it never really went anywhere. Well, that program was actually put out specifically by FHA to really solve the problem where home buyers right now, not only are they dealing with more expensive homes, they're dealing with rising property taxes, as well as they're dealing with rising insurance costs. Well, the fourth component of that very few people talk about is their electricity bill. And just to kind of give you guys a framework before I dive into this is I lived in Southern California. And in Southern California, during the course of time when I lived in my property, back in 2014, my electricity bill on one of my rentals was averaging about $120 a month. Well, over the course of time, back, when I sold the property in 2023, that electricity bill was getting up to about $540 a month on a 1,900 square foot house. That is a substantial problem, and it's really not talked about. Now, one of the things to really understand about this program is it is very specific to certain states, not because we don't want to offer it everywhere, but just like how gas prices in America could be $7 a gallon in Beverly Hills and $2.20 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, well, electricity prices vary just as dramatically. And so what this program at its initial launch, doesn't mean it's not going to eventually be there, at its initial launch is specifically targeting certain areas where homeowners are experiencing the highest increase of electricity costs, as well as solar is a very common practice. And what this program really does is not only gives them the opportunity of rolling in solar at the time of purchase, but it also rewards them by actually becoming a more educated home buyer and entitles them to basically get a 30% federal tax credit, as well as going through that financial education. They get given up to $13,000 that they are paid. It is income that they get paid on a 1099 for participating in the program that they can use towards their down payment, closing costs, reserves after closing. So many incredible things. And the best part is they're not having to take a higher interest rate to do so. So I just wanted to frame it like that. And I'm going to get right in and kind of walk everybody through it. And so let me go here. So where we are initially launching this with the Loan Store is currently in California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Texas, Idaho, Colorado, and Florida. Now, the reason why we specifically targeted those main areas is for really a couple different reasons. Number one, those areas aren't going to be having weather restrictions, which I'll get to in a minute. Like certain areas could in Salt Lake City, but they don't get crazy snow. Now, if we wanted to roll this out in, let's say, Pennsylvania, which is a state that we will be rolling out in the future, well, you'll see later on, it's very difficult to install solar after they purchase the home when, there's snow on the roof and snow on the ground for 3 to 4 months. And so what we specifically targeted was these 8 states at the time of initial rollout, and we will be expanding this into additional states, later next year. I don't have the exact timing of that, but I know the Loan Store team will definitely keep you in the loop. And so let's kind of walk through some of the basics of it. So really what you're going to see is you have the FHA Solar and Wind Technology Loan. That is the basic program. Now, that program with FHA is a normal 203 loan, and it basically allows them to roll in the cost of solar into that property, which I'll show you the exact amounts in a minute here. And then what is the beautiful part that really allowed this program that just sat on the shelves for so long to now being kind of the talk of the town was due to Hoper. Now, what Hoper is they are a research program. And we all know, and after a lot of studying with the FHA and just studying loans in kind of its entirety on how they perform, it was shown very clearly that if a homeowner at the time of purchase and they buy that home is not using every last cent in their bank account, or they're not putting themselves in some high interest rate by taking some down payment assistance loan, that if they could actually have some additional reserves to help them buy that home, as well as not be forced into a higher, interest rate by some of these assistance programs, it has been shown so far, and where the data is trending, is that those loans performed much better than other types of programs where somebody had no reserves. And when they were viewing that over at Hoper, what they said is okay, our goal is to make homeownership more affordable and make homeowners, when they're buying these homes, actually be better participants, pay their mortgage on time, making it feel better about that decision. And they knew that by combining financial education, and not the one that you go through as a down payment assistance program and just click a bunch of buttons that mean nothing, but could actually have them go through 6 to 8 hours of pre-closing education, which is the only requirement they were required to do prior to closing. And they had some additional monies to help them close on that home or for those reserves afterwards. They knew that it would help really bridge the gap in making home more affordable for people. Well, what they realized is that helps, but guess what? The property taxes are still high, insurance is still high. So once they get into that mortgage, they're not saving a lot of money per month. And so what they found out is saying, hey, we know that if we put solar on that property, what it allows that homeowner to do is to actually begin saving more money per month, because they are no longer going to be subject to those astronomical utility bills that continue to increase. In many states like California, they've gone up 80 to 100% in the last decade alone. Utah just had a 30% increase. We just saw Nevada with a 20-something% increase. We've seen it all over the country. And so what they basically put together with the Hoper program, which is a research program, is saying, hey, we know that if a homeowner goes through our financial mentorship prior to closing on online self-paced course, and they actually continue to be in that program with, participating in twice-a-year surveys and some very, free credit monitoring, and we interjected solar to help them reduce their actual homeownership costs, these buyers will actually perform better. And just like any other research program, they get paid to participate in it. And how much they earn is $13,000 up to 3.5%, whatever the lesser is between the two. And guess what? Home buyer is actually going to take it really serious by now saying, hey, I'm actually going to become a more educated buyer. I'm going to save money per month. I'm going to get up to $13,000 to put towards the purchase of my home or reserves in my bank or closings. They can use it for whatever they want. And as part of that program, they are supposed to require to do that education. They do need to put solar on the property after closing, which I'll get into here in a minute. And it now allows that homeowner to bridge that gap by getting that financial support and actually reducing their long-term energy expenses. And so it's a really cool way. So I want you guys to kind of think of it is you have your FHA solar and wind technology loan. And then what you have is you have the Hoper Research Program, which is actually a home ownership project that basically rewards that homeowner and actually gives them additional money for doing it. So think of Hoper, like as many of you guys, if you've ever lent loans in California, you have CalHAFA, or you have all these other types of programs out there. The difference with this program, it is not down payment assistance. They're not required to be a first-time home buyer. They're not required to give up their equity. They're not required to pay that money back. It is truly a research program because with the desire to make homes more affordable, to actually have these homeowners be more successful and these loans be more performing to FHA, and to really drive down those home ownership costs by lowering those energy bills. So the key components to summarize that very clearly is with the program, it is a normal FHA loan. The normal debt to income ratio limits apply. And what they can actually do is they actually they get paid for participating in the program, which I'll go over here in a minute. And they get that $13,000 up front that they get paid, and they get that paid via 1099. I know what you're thinking. Well, they're going to have some tax liability, and there's actually that gets covered. So I'll explain it here in a moment. And they can actually then get that and use that towards their down payment or reserves or pay off debt or whatever they want to do. Now, within that they are required to add solar to the property. That does not get done at the time of sale. You don't need an appraisal to support it. What basically happens is after they close on that loan, then they will actually get solar installed. And I'll break that down on how the client gets to choose their system and all of that. Now, the restrictions are on that is you just can't roll in more than 20% of the purchase price. Now, obviously, nobody even gets close to that amount because solar systems aren't that expensive unless somebody's buying a $180,000 home or something like that. So you have a really big room to roll that in. Now, with that being said, which we'll get into here in a minute on the guidelines, yes, if they're getting a house and they're buying for $500,000 and they're putting their 3.5% down and they're rolling in 30 grand for the solar, yes, they will technically be over 100% loan to value, technically. So yes, I know that's crazy to think. And when you do qualify them, the total loan amount, which includes that 96.5% financing plus the full cost of the solar, does get factored into their debt to income ratio. But you'll be actually really surprised on what the actual savings are, and I'll show you that in a minute. And so really the only thing you need to remember is just understanding that if you're going to qualify for somebody and you want to qualify them for a $500,000 purchase price and they want to use this program, and that's going to cap out their debt ratio limits, you want to make sure that they're out there shopping at 460 or 470 so you have room to roll in that solar. And I'll get into how you're going to be able to not do any of the work. You don't have to sell solar. You don't have to do any of that kind of stuff because the Hoper and AHA, they actually do all that, work with you directly, work with your clients directly, and make it very, very simple. Now, the only thing they have to do prior to closing, the only thing that they're required to do prior to closing is to complete the home buyer education financial mentorship. Now, I'll be honest, I was really leery of what that looked like because I've dealt with so many times where clients have to go through this buyer education. And it is not the buyer education where it's just telling you a bunch of random facts. It is really good. It actually is teaching them a lot of the principles that school has failed them to do. And the feedback from the buyers going through it is they really, really liked it. And the last component of the program that's so cool is not only are they able to earn up to that $13,000 to use towards their closing, and not only are they able to basically substantially reduce their electricity costs and finance that directly into their mortgage loan, which is tax deductible interest. They get a great deal on the solar for them. It's rolled into their mortgage loan, but there's actual federal tax code that whatever the price of that solar system is, they get a 30% federal tax credit. So using that example of rolling in $30,000, they're getting $13,000 up front, and then they would be getting $9,000 as a federal tax credit the year that they file their taxes. So let's say they bought a home now in November of 2024. They file their taxes in April. Well, they actually get a tax credit, an ITC tax credit that they get as part of their solar contract that they give to their CPA. And let's say, they normally paid in, they owed $10,000 to the IRS and they paid in, $10,000. So they weren't getting a refund back when they filed their taxes. Well, now with that $9,000 credit, they actually get a $9,000 refund back. So not only are they getting the $13,000 or up to it at the time of closing, but then what they also get is whenever they file their taxes, 6 months, 12 months, depending on where they buy the house that year, they're also getting another injection, which, 2, 3, 4 months worth of their mortgage payments, depending on their system size, to do that. So it's a double hit, 13 grand up front plus this federal tax credit. And it is an unbelievable opportunity. In some states, that we will be expanding into, like Illinois or New Mexico, they actually offer state tax credits in addition to that in those areas as well. So there's, I won't go down too much down that rabbit hole. Now, on a very, very high level process, what does this look like for you? Because I'll be honest, we've done a beta program. Loan officers have loved it. Even loan officers, at my mortgage company, Modern Lending, they've been killing it on this program. But at first they were like, I don't want to do a bunch of work. I don't want to have to sell solar. You don't have to do any of that. So what does that process look like for you? It's very, very, very simple. I want you to kind of understand this from the loan officer's perspective so you can kind of understand your SOP, your standard operating procedures, right? So the first thing you're going to do is go through a training, just like you're doing right now. You're going through a training right now so you understand the program. The second thing you're going to basically do is you're going to go ahead and you are going to just take a brief little quiz that we will be sending you after this meeting. And basically that just shows that you paid attention and that you know the basics of that program. Then once that's done, you are now have the ability and you are approved to start offering the Hoper program to your clients. Then, just like normal, you pre-approve your clients for whatever the max amount for an FHA loan is, knowing very well that, like I said, if they're pre-approved up to $500,000, well, you want them shopping at 460 or 470, and you'll actually know that amount by working with your AHA or the Hoper representative that you'll be partnered with, just like you have an account executive over at the loan store. And once you have a buyer that gets pre-approved, and it's very simple. Hey, home buyer, I want to tell you there's actually a new program out there that's not down payment assistance. You don't have to pay it back. You just have to go through an education system. And then what you do is the home that you buy, you got to convert it to a green home, which is going to help reduce down your electricity costs on that. Now, for participating in this research program, you get to earn up to $13,000 or 3.5% of your purchase price. You don't have to pay back. You get the same rate as your normal FHA loan, and you get a 30% federal tax credit on top of it. Would you like to, have me pre-approve you for that program? Yeah, that sounds great. Home buyer gets pre-approved. Once they get pre-approved, you have your own dedicated Hoper rep. You introduce them just like you would, introduce them to an insurance agent. Hey, Mike or Taylor, I just want to introduce you to Steve, my client. He's interested in the Hoper program. Please contact him. Hoper takes it away. They explain the program to him in detail. They tell him how it works. And then basically what they do is they sign a research agreement that says, yep, I'm going to participate in this program. I'm going to use this money to be able to purchase a home. They do 6 to 8 hours of an online self-paced course. And then once that is basically done and they complete that course, they actually earn that $13,000, which is held in a savings account that can be used. And this works under what's called the Savings Club. That's in the FHA 4000.1 handbook. And what it does is that specific money sits in an account in their name that can be used towards the purchase of a home. They then go out, find their home that they like. Hope representative gets back in contact with them. The client gets to design a system, a solar system on what they want. The client then, Hoper sends that to you and says, hey, great news. The client, here's a copy of the solar, contract and the price that we basically agreed upon. It's 28 grand or 30 grand or whatever that is. You then, as the loan officer, go ahead. You're buying that house at 500,000. You make the adjustments there for you. So the total now that they're basically financing is 530,000. They get a loan amount for 96.5% of the 500. The full cost of the solar gets rolled in. You submit it, and I'll kind of go over it in a minute. And it goes through just like a normal FHA loan. The best part is the buyer has that $13,000 to be used to buy down the rate, put down their down payment. And we have so many clients. I think it's something around 80% of all the clients that use this program, they have their full down payment. They have it. They don't need this to necessarily buy, but now they can buy down the rate. They can put reserves. They can pay for their moving costs, whatever they need to be able to use it. Then the loan closes just like normal. Just like normal. 30-day escrow is the minimum requirement for the program. And then once that house closes, the client moves into the house. The money is held by the loan store in their solar escrow account. We go out, we do the work, we install the solar, exactly what the client did. Once that solar is installed, FHA appraiser goes back out, checks on the roof, says, yep, solar's been installed. Payment gets remitted to the solar installation company for doing the work. And the client's like normal. No delay on closing, none of that stuff. It is that easy. And then they save on their electricity bills, which I'll show you in a couple examples here in just a moment. Now, what you basically can understand is every one of your TLS account executives basically have and work with a partner over at AHA, which is like the administrative part of Hoper. And they'll basically be able to answer any of your questions. So if you want to know who your AHA rep is, talk to the loan store account executive. They'll make that introduction for you, and you'll be able to do that. Now, one of the things that you'll basically do is you are required to go through this training, which you guys are doing right now. And then everybody that's joined this call will be sent a basic quiz. You'll be introduced from the loan store AE directly to AHA. And basically, they'll be there just like how you have the loan store account executive. You have your Hoper or AHA executive that will be working with your clients. It's a very, very simple process. You'll build that relationship with them just like you have with your account executive or your insurance agent or any of your partners on that program. Now, let me go here. Sec. All right. Streaming is a little slow. Give me 1 second. Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay. So just to kind of recap what I just went over for you guys, as soon as this goes in here. Come on. There we go. So like I said, you guys will go through your training. Whoops. Stupid thing. So you guys will go through your training. And then once you go through your training, I know a lot of you guys are going to have questions specifically about what type of properties qualify. And so let me lay this out to you guys very simply. Number one, this is for single family homes. It's not for condos. It's not for attached townhomes. Why? They need to own the roof. They need to own the full structure. So it is for single family homes only. The second requirement that it basically has to be done is that the property does need to have their roof in a good condition. Now, the good part is if you have a home and that roof maybe isn't in the best condition, as part of the process, the only thing that gets done outside of the appraisal is there's something called a site inspection. And what happens is the Hoper team will go ahead and they will order a site inspection. Doesn't cost the homeowner anything. And what that person is doing is they're going out and they are checking the house. They're saying, hey, does this house, is it houses suitable for solar? Or is every single tree covering the roof so they obviously can't get any sunlight? They'll just check for it. They'll make sure that the roof's in a good condition. They'll check if the electrical panel is fine. And if it comes back and let's say, hey, you know what? There needs a little bit of work on the roof, or hey, you know what? The electrical panel needs to be upgraded. Well, the cool part of the program is within reason, you can actually roll in some of those costs into the program to make solar viable. And what we've done with our technology is we've actually built for you, for the Hoper team, an actual program where they on their end, when you work with them and you give them a property for your client, they will actually go and run that property and actually will be able to determine the eligibility. Now, I don't want you to think like only 1 out of every 5 homes is eligible. No, if that property is a single family residence, it's located in one of the approved states, and as long as it's not in Lake Tahoe where you can't see the roof or, or something in that nature, they will go ahead and they will run this for your client and it'll break everything down for your client. So you guys can see it here. This is an actual real live deal. So this purchase price was $429,000. They're getting their $13,000 that they get here. So instead of $15,000 down, if they wanted to apply it towards their down payment, here's what their down payment would be. This program actually tells the homeowner what their estimated electricity bill will be based on using AI data, pulling in the actual usage from that neighborhood. And so the homeowner actually knows what their savings will be within reason because they can actually understand what that electricity cost will be for a home that they're basically buying. It tells that homeowner, hey, look, not only are you getting your 13 grand, but in addition to that, you're getting your 30% federal tax credit, plus you're saving money on your energy costs. And in Zillow's most recent study and a Fannie Mae's recent study, homes that own a solar system and do not have a separate finance solar loan, or they're leasing it or any of that, it is between a 3 and 4% increase in the value of their home. And so what it does is it calculates that increase in the value of their home and shows the homeowner, hey, look, by using this program, this is what your total benefit in year 1 is. Here's how much you're saving between your electricity bills continuing to go up. Here's what that savings is over the term of the mortgage, and then basically gives them some very, very easy things to be able to understand. So it's a really cool tool that they're going to be using, your Hoper rep, to make sure that these properties meet those eligibility requirements. So your job is just to make sure it's a single family home, it's in an eligible state, and then when you make that introduction to the Hoper rep and you give them that address, they'll tell you if there's any concerns there. Super, super easy, just like your insurance agent you work with now. They're going to come back and tell you, hey, this isn't a fire zone, or hey, this insurance is going to be a little bit higher because it doesn't have enough defensible space. You aren't needing to be an insurance expert. No, that's the insurance agent's job. The same thing here with Hoper and AHA. So it's a really cool thing to be able to utilize and do. Now, What basically will happen is once your client talks to Oprah, they will go ahead and put a proposal together for them. They'll say, hey, based on this house, here's the system that we would recommend. They can add in California if they want to add a battery backup, or there's they'll go over all those details with that homeowner. They're not just forced to be like, oh, this is what it is. Now, for the installation of the solar, what is being done is there is approved vendors that were done by the loan store. So for an example, I'll just give you one. For example, Citadel in California. Citadel, to give you how reputable Citadel is, Citadel has been around for 27 years, and they are the ones that do all the roofing and all the solar installs for all the largest home builders in California. They are a billion-dollar company, perfect reviews online, everything you could possibly think of, and that's what's being vetted. The homeowner can't just go out and pick their uncle to do the solar because it's an absolute nightmare. We don't want any side business going on. So just like anything else, it's an approved vendor in each state, and there's multiple different installers in each state so that the Hopper representative can discuss with the client to always make sure that they give them the best price. Because one of the things that many of you guys are probably unaware of, and why this program is so valuable to your clients, is case in point, your homeowner buys a house, they move into their house, they get some door knocking kid that knocks on their door and goes ahead and tells them, hey, you should put solar on your house, you can save X, Y, and Z amount. Well, they have two options. They can lease it, which means they don't own it. They're just basically paying, a solar company to buy their power from. They get no tax credits. Or two, they can finance it. And for all of us loan officers, we'll understand this. Financing terms of solar are typically either a 15-year or a 20-year. And on average, they're being charged about 20 points in origination. 20 points, guys. So for an example, on average, by using the Hopper program and rolling in the cost solar, which is just like a cash sale because it's being paid through the mortgage, they're saving for that solar system on average about $12,000 to $14,000 versus financing it the typical way through solar at a 9 to 11% interest rate, 20 dealer points, having some random kid that's taking them to the cleaners by trying to make some big commission check, all of that stuff. So it's giving them access to solar that's an affordable way, installed by a trusted partner and at a discounted amount. So it's a really cool way to do. And like I said, they'll discuss that. They'll send you over the proposal. So all you need to do is know to introduce them to Hopper. Hopper will send you, once they've gone through the education, copy of their pay stubs, copy of the bank statement showing the 13 grand's in there, which they can do prior to even finding the home if they choose to. Then once they find that property, the client and you will tell Hopper, hey, we found this property, here it is. They'll send you over, here's what the cost of the solar is going to be. You just add it to the purchase price and the loan amount, which I'll show you here in just a moment. Once it gets into escrow, get loan approval, site inspector gets taken care of by Hopper. They go out, make sure the property's good to go. Property's good to go. And you close your loan just like normal. Client moves in and the solar install gets done afterwards. Now, from the time they move in to how quickly the solar gets on the roof, it's typically anywhere about 30 to 60 days, but every city's a little bit different because they all have different timelines for permitting, different timelines for certain criteria like that. But by the actual program, it needs to get installed in roughly about 100 days. So these things move very quickly. And that's a really good thing. Your client's not going to be sitting there for 7 months without panels on their roof. And none of the money for that comes out of pocket. It's literally rolled into their loan at a lower FHA rate and financed over 30 years at tax deductible interest. Plus they get that tax credit. It's literally a win-win-win. And so how do you calculate? And we have examples for you guys. And there's actually in the training that we provide you guys, you'll actually get this, which I know most of us do not understand. A lot of FHA guidelines are crazy. I worked with the loan store team as well as the Hopper team, and we actually wrote guidelines for you guys in everyday person terms, everything you can possibly imagine to understand it, the basics of the program, the flow for you guys on the loan, kind of the selling points of it, side-by-side examples, which I'll show you here in a moment. It'll actually give you what the home buyer is responsible for basically doing, a really easy cheat sheet, the eligible states that we're in, basically all best practices for you guys, what to kind of simply look out for, different questions you may have, and how to actually talk to your clients, as well as what the documents look like when they get approved, what their income documents look like, all of that good stuff right in here for you guys. And it's written in a very, very easy way to understand from that loan officer's perspective. So it's a really cool way for you guys to do it. Now, when it comes to determining what that loan amount is, there's a couple different things that's going to be a little bit unique for you guys. So going back to that example, client's going to buy a house at $500,000. Now that $500,000, and I'll do an example here so you guys can actually see this for you guys on your screen. So I'll give you an example. So let's say a client's going to buy a house at $500,000. Okay. Now, what that $500,000 is going to basically do is, let's say here on this amount, we basically can say, okay, $500,000 is the purchase price of the property. Here's the mortgage rate, the taxes, all the normal stuff. What you guys can see here is when we come to the loan amount, the way it works is you take your $500,000, and normal under a standard FHA, you take 96.5% of this 500,000, roll in the upfront MIP, and here's their final loan amount. Well, on this case, all you're doing is, I just put 40 grand in here for the solar, $500,000. They're adding $40,000 in solar. Their base loan amount that they do is this amount right here, plus that $40,000, which is giving you your 523. So you get to roll in the full amount of it, and then you add your MIP, and there's the amount. So the cool part is you get to roll in 100% of the cost of the solar directly into that loan amount. Now, I know what many of you are thinking, well, 40 grand for solar, that's a lot. Let's explain this. So first off, on this $500,000 house, using a 3% increase in value, here's their increase in value, okay, or 15 grand. They get $13,000 for the program. They're getting $12,000 in a federal tax credit. This is that tax credit that would actually be able to cover any of the income tax on that $13,000. It's substantially more. So their total benefit of the program is $21,000. Then they get $15,000 of increased value by adding the solar. Therefore, you can see what that net adjusted cost is. So it's a really cool way to do it. And if we want to just look at this in action, let's just look at it in action. So we can say down here, here is our side by side. So yes, they did finance about $40,000 more. But let's break it down. So their mortgage payment does go up about $250 a month because they finance 40 grand more. We have their PMI, we have their property taxes, we have their insurance. And so, yeah, the mortgage payment did go up $275. But what we've been able to do is the electricity bill that they were paying, which we knew from that report, was about $400 a month. So their new payment difference, actually, after getting the $13,000, after getting that federal tax credit, in this case, is actually $76 a month cheaper. Because yes, their housing expense actually does include the electricity bill. They have to pay it. Nobody's not paying their electric bill. So this is just in year one. Then as this electric bill continues to go up and up and up, guess what? Their mortgage rate's fixed. That payment is staying the same. So every year, that delta of what their savings becomes more and more and more per month, adding to their reserves, plus all the additional benefits of the tax credit and the $13,000 at closing. So it's an unbelievable value for that actual homeowner. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Brian, how the heck do we get an approve eligible if the loan to value is over 100% or whatever it may be? And the thing is just like back in the day when we were running DU and we were running a conventional high balance loan and it came in as approve ineligible, the same thing. You don't need to get an approved eligible finding. You just need to get an approved ineligible finding, meaning it's approved, it's ineligible due to the loan amount being over 96.5%. So the same type of finding. So don't stress yourself out here. And in the guides that we give you, that cheat sheet, it's super easy to walk you through. Your account executive is there to help you, and AHA is there to help you as well. So now going through some of the best practices, and then I want to leave enough time for questions. So really easy thing. Number one is, yes, and I saw a question come up. Should you get your buyers to start on the program before they find a house? Absolutely. Now, you don't have to. Maybe you have a client that's already pre-approved and they're going to be opening escrow tomorrow and you just find out about this. Yes, they can do that. If somebody really works hard on getting that education done, they can usually have those funds in their bank account in about 4 to 5 days from once they sign that program over and they go and do it. So it's not something that takes weeks and weeks and weeks to do, as long as the borrower is actually following what they want to do. And trust me, when they're getting a free $13,000 for, or not free, but they're getting paid $13,000 for participating, they're going to get that done. And so, yes, you want to get that borrower introduced to the AHA Hoper team as soon as possible. And you want to make sure that they get that education done. Once they get that education done, they get paid for participating in that program, and they have that money. And that money sitting in that account is used just like a normal asset. Now, and the income they're getting paid is completely allowed to be used. This has been ran through FHA. Now, it's not qualifying income because it doesn't have a 2-year history of continuance, but you can absolutely use that $13,000 for reserves, paying down debt towards that payment, and it's a completely sourceable type of income. Number 2 is make sure that you're with the Hoper team. Like, if that gets into escrow and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell them that they're already in escrow. So just make sure to understand that after that borrower gets in, let your AHA rep know as soon as that client is making an offer on that property so that they can go ahead and start prepping that for you, right? So make sure you stay in touch with the team, just like with your insurance agent. If you know your client's debt to income ratio is high, you're not going to not get an insurance quote and let him go submit an offer on a property that has a pool or could potentially be in a fire hazard area. No, you're going to do that ahead of time. And the same thing's here. Just make sure you keep them out. The other thing is you're going to be making sure that you're going to be tracking that, getting that documents. Hoper's going to send you a copy of their pay stubs, copy of the bank statement showing the 13 grand in there, copy of the education certificate, and they're going to send you what the amount is to roll into that loan. So they'll provide that to you. So just make sure you know that to be able to do it. And then just like everything else, you're going to want to make sure that property is eligible. So, if they're going to go submit an offer on a property and it's a condo or attached townhome and they think they're using this program, well, you need to make sure that you get with that account executive over at the Hoper team at AHA to make sure that property is eligible. They have access to that program. They will run that and send that property eligibility report to you and your client and have a call on that. So just remember, for property eligibility, just like you do on any type of pre-approval, make sure before you tell the client just to go out and submit an offer that they understand that this property this is used on single family homes. They're not out there submitting on condos or attached townhomes. Or, if they're deciding between 2 states and they were originally going to buy in California and now they want to buy in New Mexico and New Mexico is not an approved state, you want to make sure that that's in that, just common sense stuff, right? And so just as a recap for the benefits, number 1 is they're going to save money over their energy savings costs over that term of that loan or that home. They're going to do it. If they aren't going to save money on the energy costs, then they're not going to be approved for the program. Now, we're specifically having this in cases where that is the case, but there are places like North Dakota, for an example. They have the cheapest electricity costs. It's about 90% cheaper than in California. So there's some states that this won't eventually roll out to just because their electricity costs are just so cheap. The savings wouldn't be there, but that's just such a small percentage of the actual population. And none of you guys on this call are in those states. So you guys wouldn't be invited on this call. The other part is they get 3.5% of the sales price up to 13 grand without taking a higher rate, without giving away any of their equity, without having to pay it back. They're literally getting paid to participate in this research program. They also get that 30% federal tax credit, which on average is around 12 grand on what we're seeing. So that's an unbelievable. So 13 grand up front and then $12,000 either back from their refund, or if they owed money at the end of the year to the IRS and they owed 13 grand, well, now they only owe $1,000 if they got a $12,000 credit. It also increases the value of their home. There's no solar liens on the property. There's no leases on the property. And I'll tell you right now, I've seen it firsthand. When you have one property in San Diego where 2,000 square foot house has a $500 to $600 a month bill, and then you have the next door property that has solar on the property and it's paid off solar, right? Where they don't have a lien. There's a big difference because people buy based on monthly payment. And this is really starting to catch on and people are becoming aware of this. And it gets rid of all the stupid leases and weird transferabilities of all these other things because they actually own the system and there is no solar lien on that property because there's nothing on it. So like I said, the big thing that you want to make sure, and then I'll kind of open it up for questions here, is just really hammering this point home, is number 1, if they get pre-approved for that program and they are out shopping for that house, and let's say they get that 13 grand deposit in that savings account, they have 1 year to buy a home and use that money. If they decide, you know what, that's in that savings club account and I am just deciding I want to buy this condo, well, they forfeit that money because they didn't meet the program's eligibility requirements. Or if they decide to not buy a home and 13 months has passed, they forfeited that ability. And if they decide they want to buy a property again, well, then they can go ahead and participate back into that program. Also, when in doubt, just check with your AHA rep. Send them over an address. Hey, my clients like this property. Is this one good to go? Same thing you would do with insurance. Same thing your realtors ask you to do. It's really simple stuff. And then just make sure, and this is really only the factor when you're, if you have a client that's at their max on their debt to income ratio limit, just make sure that you're leaving that room for them to be able to finance that solar in. If that's one of the reasons they're buying is to use this program. If you pre-approved them at, 55.5% DTI at 500 grand and they want to buy a house at 490 and roll in solar, yeah, that's not going to work. Just like anything else, just use your logic and you'll know what that system cost will be about, because when the client goes through that eligibility, Hoper will send you and say, hey, just so you know, it's going to be about 30 grand or it's going to be about 40 grand or whatever that number is. So you'll be able to know where they need to keep their max purchase price when they go through at that approvals process with Hoper. And so the big thing that you really want to understand is when you're explaining to your real estate agents and explaining to everybody else is the key is not, oh my gosh, there's this program out there and it's a down payment. Don't use the word down payment assistance. It's not a down payment assistance program. What this basically is this program is specifically designed as a research program. Hey, there's a new research program in our area that if you participate in it, which you actually get paid $13,000 or 3.5% of the purchase price, no higher interest rate, no money to pay back. All you have to do before closing is about 6 to 8 hours of online self-paced education. And then you actually have to, when you buy that home, you've got to make it a green home by putting solar on that property. But the best part is you don't have to pay any of out of pocket. You can actually roll it. I get asked all the time, can I roll anything into this mortgage? I know we all do. Yes, you can. And it's going to save you money over time. And by the way, you get a 30% federal tax credit. So if you could use about $25,000 between what you get paid up front and what that tax credit is, I think that this is something we should definitely look at. Oh, that sounds awesome. It sounds too good to be true. That's what everybody says. Well, here's the problem. And why this is so thing is we have known that affordability is one of the biggest topics in government right now, is trying to help people the right way get into homes and make them successful in those homes. And so this program makes them more educated borrowers, actually pays them for the research program because they're not going to do it otherwise. And then what it does is it also helps with the environment, and our electricity grids all across the country, they were not built for nearly 400 million people when they built them in the 50s and 60s. They never thought our population would expand like this. So it also solves the problem of all these blackouts we're having and just not being able to have enough power in these houses, because guess what? The house was built in the 1970s or 80s. And when the grids were built, they didn't expect us to have 5 TVs and 4 computers and all this stuff in there. So homes use so much more electricity. So it helps it all around. And it's such a beautiful program. And what we've done for you guys is put everything together in a very easy resource guide. So it's a super, super, super cool program. Well, what your AEs will send it to you. There's training videos that are broken down into 5 to 7 minute little intervals. There is DU examples. There's LE examples. There's that guide that shows you. We've taken so much time to put this, and I was really involved in doing this, being a loan officer for a long time. So it was really put together so that you guys can kind of understand it. And I'm telling you guys right now, our team at Modern, a lot of people that were on this beta program, they are crushing it with this program. And so it's really helping bringing back affordability. And so I want to leave the last 10 minutes for questions. So I'll open it up, or if, Taylor or Michael or anybody over there at the Hoper team have something, feel free to interject. I've talked enough. All right. Let's see. Okay, I'll take some of these. Perfect. So Galena, I see this here. Can a new roof be built into the solar panel quote for purchases and refi? So yes, that is a possibility. Now, what you have to make sure is that you are falling under that 20% amount you can roll through. So most roofs are $15,000 to $25,000. So yes, that can be done. What can't be done is saying, oh, I want a new roof, but I don't want solar. No, the solar and wind technology alone allows you to roll in solar and any of the costs that are direct result from making solar viable on that home. Maybe it's an electrical panel upgrade. Maybe it's replacing some of the roofing panel or the roofing shingles, whatever that basically may be. So it's a really cool thing. What if the borrower shops and finds a cheaper solar quote? So two things is, number one, they won't because they're getting $13,000 for it. So if they want to use the HOPR program, they have to use one of the FHA and Loan Store vetted vendors. So if they want to go out there and they want to get their own solar and do that, that is completely fine. But they do not get that $13,000 for HOPR, and they do not get to roll it into the actual mortgage loan. And like I said, this isn't a way for people to like have to use a specific solar company. As I mentioned, we use multiple different vetted installers, but one of the big things to go through with it is making sure that they're getting $13,000 to do it. So the chances of them finding a cheaper quote from a reputable company that is more than $13,000, if by some chance their uncle owns one, awesome. They can do that. They just don't use the HOPR program to do it. What happens? Let's see. Is there a link to, so each with your AHA rep, they will go over it with you because each one of the installers is based on metro area. It's not like a nationwide installer, so they can basically go ahead and do that for you. What happens if the borrower wants to sell the house? They can sell the house just like normal. There's no solar lien on that property. Now, obviously, if you have a borrower that buys a house and they plan on selling it in a year, probably not good to put them on this program because, if they're rolling in, effectively, even though between the tax, if they want to keep the 13 grand, keep the tax credit and not use that to apply towards what they're paying for the solar. So they want to basically pocket 25 grand and then roll in the full cost of the solar and they want to sell it in a year. They may be upside down potentially because they took $25,000 and put it into their pocket. Now, if they took that 13 grand and then they took that obviously tax credit and used it to pay down the mortgage loan, they probably wouldn't be in an upside down situation. So just like anything else, we wouldn't advise any of our clients to buy an FHA home if they were going to sell the house in 6 months or a year. But normal, there is no problem. They own that solar outright. So there is no lease to transfer. There is no loan to transfer. There is nothing to be factored in to the new buyer's debt to income ratio. So they'll be able to advertise it as free and clear solar on that property. Let's see here. Perfect. I know Jaren's kind of answering some of these ones here. Can we get editable marketing materials to the program? Yes, you absolutely can, Nikki. Your AEs will have those and they've been working on them. As far as that goes, let me see if there's any other questions. Let's see, answered that one. Jaren, if a borrower is looking at several properties, do we need to reach out solar rep proposal for each property? Not necessarily. So the way they'll typically do this, as long as the borrower, because the solar system size is usually built based on the borrower's needs, right? It's a family of 3, family of 4. They're basically designing that system accordingly. So the system size that they'll want will be pretty much standardized throughout most of the properties they're looking at. Now, the only thing that you would want to consider is if you give them an example of a property that they're going to be getting pre-approved on and say it's a 2,000 square foot single family home, and all of a sudden they find a 1,100 square foot single family home. Well, I would reach out to them for that because it doesn't mean they can't participate in the program, but it's very likely the system that was originally designed could be too big to fit on that house. And so or maybe the property they're buying now has a pool and maybe they would want to be a little bit bigger of a system there. But as a general rule of thumb, the way that the system and the size of a system is usually catered towards that individual family. So as long as they're looking at houses that are all in the same general type, which most people are, then when they give you that quote and say it's, I'm just an example, 40 grand, well, then it'll be pretty much 40 grand for all those properties. It would only be if, they're looking at some weird property that's either way smaller or a property that is completely covered in trees that you can't even see the roof. It would only be on those weird ones, but your AHA rep, they're Johnny on the spot. Hey, they're looking at these 3 properties. You see problem on any of these 3? Nope, all are good. Or hey, 2 of these work, 1 of them doesn't. Super easy to be able to do, from that point. Let's see. Is this compatible with VA? No, it is not compatible with VA. This is FHA only right now because of the way it was built. It works directly with what's called the Savings Club, which is directly in FHA. So it is an FHA only product. There will be potentially in the future, the Loan Store is working on some cool things that are not to fruition yet, but they are looking at the possibility in the future of trying to get this program to work with other types of loans. So it is definitely something there, but it's just not the highest priority right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in and tease it real quick, Brian, because I have enough confidence to do that. We have a strong degree of confidence that at some point in the next 6 months we will have the program for conventional financing, and very, very confident that we'll have it even sooner than that for non-QM. So we're going to be the first in the business to roll out a non-QM Simply Solar variation as well. So just teasing it for you. I think that one's going to take us about 30 days, but we're going fast. That's part of the fun.
Absolutely. Jaron, was there anything that you wanted to say? So Jaron is actually the brainchild behind the Hoper program, and I don't know if there's something you wanted to kind of specifically address, Jaron, for the last minute or two.
I'll be quick, Brian. Really appreciate Brian's support. Like he mentioned, he was an early adopter. He has both a solar mind and a mortgage mind. So he very quickly recognized the value proposition that we're bringing to the market here, and has just been a huge advocate. So I can't thank Brian enough. Will and the entire team at the Loan Store, we really, really appreciate what you've done to roll this out. And I just want to, in all of this, I think it was emphasized well, but I just don't want to lose the why behind what we're doing. There are 3 serious social challenges that this program addresses. It is the affordable housing crisis. It is the energy crisis, and it is the savings crisis. And so everyone knows about the affordable housing crisis. Enough said. It's a problem. This makes homeownership more attainable. The energy crisis, we are a little bit ahead of our time. Depending on where you live, you may not be yet dialed into this, but I will go on record to tell you that in the next 5 to 10 years, our home buyers that we're putting into 30-year mortgages right now are going to suffer some extreme stress because of the energy crisis and the challenges that come. It looks like it may not be in this administration, it may be in the next, but over the next 10 years, we are going to be talking about PI payments in the industry, principal, interest, and electricity. It is a real challenge in certain areas right now, and it's going to be more of a challenge. And you are doing your borrowers a solid by being a financial advisor, more than a loan officer, at a pivotal time in their life, and helping them protect themselves against the rising energy rates that are coming in a way with a solution that's been hidden in plain sight for years through this FHA program that the Loan Store is now making available widely. And it's simply stated, there is no better way to lock in and secure a low energy rate for a home buyer other than through this program. Finally, it's the savings crisis. We don't talk a lot about the savings crisis because as lenders, we have felt powerless to do anything about it. We know that we are putting buyers into expensive homes and we see the fact that they have no long-term history of savings, and they are spending everything they have on this home, and they're living check to check during the early years of the mortgage. We know that's happening. In the past, we haven't been able to do anything about it. This is making a real impact on their life. They have a milestone where they're buying a home. It's an opportunity for them to pivot financially and to think harder about their spending behaviors, which we address through our education and our mentorship, and then to actually benefit from a mechanism that after they've been through our financial mentorship and they are motivated and inspired to put away 6 months of reserves in an account that they don't touch unless they need it for a mortgage emergency, for the first time in their life, they not only have the motivation, but they have the mechanism, because they have the additional money coming in up front, but in addition to that, they have this significant tax credit that comes in after the financial mentorship and becomes a savings account. So I know that this is new to you. We've been running it for almost 2 years in a beta test format, and we are seeing it change lives. So we're looking forward to partnering with all of you as loan officers to be more than just a mortgage advisor, but to be a life-changing financial advisor for your clients. That's all I got.
I think you guys nailed it, and really happy that we were able to come together today and share something as valuable as this is. So appreciate the time, everybody. This is awesome, and we look forward to helping you to build your business with programs that deliver real value to your consumers.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
How do you want to get the knowledge check out to these folks?
Yeah. So what we're going to be doing, I think, is the best way to be able to do it is everybody that's been on this call. What we will go ahead and do is we will provide all of that knowledge and all those links directly to the account executive team, and the account executives can go ahead and send it out to everybody and then CC the corresponding AHA rep. So it'll be a good introduction between the AHA rep and their account executive. So we'll make sure to get all those links directly over to them. Does that work for you, Brenda?
Yep, we'll make it work. So just to reiterate, everybody that's on the call, you do need to pass, it's a very simple 10-point quiz. Once you've done that, then you'll be approved to deliver these loans to TLS. So the gist of it is just making sure that you're able to present this to the consumers and they have a good understanding of how the program works.
Yep. Perfect. And so we'll go ahead and get all of the account executives, everybody that has on this, and we'll make sure to have you guys all have that in your inbox no later than tomorrow. We'll get that over to the AEs over at TLS, and they can go ahead and send those out, and then obviously have the corresponding introduction to your AHA assigned rep that works directly with your account executive. And then in that will be a link to take the quiz. It'll be a link to all the resources that I showed you today, as well. It will also be a recap. So if there's anything you kind of did need some more clarity of, there's about 5 or 6 videos that I created, everything on how to set up your DU, how to set up your LE, how to, all the just kind of the very basic principles of this to actually make it actionable and very bite-sized bites. So you guys will have all of that for you guys as well.
All right, well, that concludes our webinar. A recording of this will be available on the TLS Marketing Hub. If you do not have access to the TLS Marketing Hub, reach out to your account executive and they'll also get you connected there. We appreciate everybody watching and we'll look forward to chatting with you soon.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.